Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin today's discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 10 important articles. There are 5 articles that require a detailed analysis as they are important not just for prelims but as well as for the mains exam. Then we have few small topics that are important only for the prelims examination. So let's cover all these topics comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. I hope you guys are benefiting from these initiatives, and if you are, do let us know with your comments, do press that like button and don't forget to share these videos with other aspirants as well. Before we start, please ensure you join my Telegram channel because after the session ends, I'll be sharing the PDF of the session on my Telegram channel. So scan the QR code so that you can access the PDF after the session ends. With this, let's begin with today's discussion by looking at this important editorial on page number 8. This editorial is focused on the sensitive topic of marital rape. The article can be very important for social issues under GS1 and as well as for polity under GS2. So first, let's understand why is the topic of marital rape in the news and what is the debate and controversy surrounding marital rape in India. Recently, there was a very controversial case in Chhattisgarh. In 2017, a 40-year-old husband allegedly had forceful sexual intercourse with his 30-year-old wife that led to grievous injuries to the wife, and eventually the wife lost her life. So this matter, which had been taken up for prosecution at the level of Sessions Court in Chhattisgarh, the Sessions Court had convicted the husband of marital rape and accordingly rigorous imprisonment had been awarded as a punishment. But the accused went on appeal to the Chhattisgarh High Court, and in a very controversial judgment, the Chhattisgarh High Court has acquitted the accused. Essentially, the Chhattisgarh High Court has stated that any form of unnatural sex within the institution of marriage is not a punishable criminal offence. In a way, Chhattisgarh High Court, by relying on certain legal provisions that are present in our country, has legitimized marital rape and sexual violence in the institution of marriage. So this is where we need to look a little deeper into this topic, understand the legal basis of this judgment. Of course, the Chhattisgarh High Court would have passed this judgment on the basis of sound legal logic. So we need to look at those provisions, understand why it is controversial and what can be done. And we also need to compare the global approach towards marital rapes and sexual violence within marriage, how other countries are dealing with these cases and where does India stand in this regard? Because this is a deeper social issue as well, especially in patriarchal societies. In the institution of marriage, it is expected that the wife will have to cooperate with the husband, and essentially the concept of consent is ignored and even subjugated and given a very low priority as well by the society, by the legal systems as well. While a healthy sexual relationship is essential for a healthy marriage, this cannot happen at the cost of consent. It cannot be forced sex where the female partner is forced, expected by the husband, by the family, by the society to fulfill these obligations even without her consent. So that is where this controversy arises. Now, if you look at our legal system, there is a major flaw. The colonial laws that we inherited, particularly the Indian Penal Code, it contains a certain provision, section 375, which contains an exception. This is a British era policy under which there was an exception given for marital rape, where marital rape was not treated as a criminal offence. So this has a lot to do with the colonial hangover on India's legal system as well. So under exception 2 of section 375 of the erstwhile Indian Penal Code, marital rape is not a punishable criminal offence. So any form of sexual violence within a marriage is not seen as a criminal offence. It's not a punishable offence unless and until the wife is under 15 years old. This was the provision, the exception that was given under section 375. It does not criminalize marital rape. If the wife is an adult, then marital rape is not a criminal offense according to this law. The only exception being if the wife is under 15 years old. This age limit was revised by the Supreme Court in the landmark independent thought case in 2017, and the age limit was raised to 18 years. That if the wife is a minor under 18 years of age, then marital rape becomes a criminal punishable offense. But please understand, this largely has to do with Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. It essentially doesn't criminalize marital rape. It essentially implements the provisions of Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Only if the wife is under 18 years, only if the wife is a minor, only then such cases of forced sexual intercourse or sexual violence within the institution of marriage is treated as a criminal offense. Otherwise, marital rape is in a way legal in the country. So this is where many petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court. In the last few years, number of pleas have been filed at the Supreme Court to consider the issue and to come out with a ruling to declare marital rape as a criminal punishable offense. But we will understand what Supreme Court has said, what is the stand of the judiciary on this matter. But please understand that consent is being compromised over here because of the flaws in our legal system and the orthodox nature of the society as well, and also the lack of action taken by the government and the parliament, the legislature. So if you look at these pleas and petitions that came up in front of the Supreme Court did not take a position on this issue, and recently it has deferred all these pleas, and it has stated that it's the jurisdiction of the legislature to decide as to how to deal with marital rapes. The judiciary has said it should not step into this domain, given that it's a sensitive issue and a social issue as well, which can have a deeper social impact. The judiciary has rescued itself and placed that responsibility on the parliament, on the legislature, to come out with adequate laws. So as of now, the judiciary is just interpreting cases according to the established law of the land. So in that regard, Chhattisgarh High Court is not entirely incorrect, because the law provides for marital rape to be essentially not treated as a criminal offense. So the Supreme Court deferred all these pleas which demanded the criminalization of marital rape, and it has passed on this burden to the parliament, the government essentially, to deliberate about the need for such laws, to look at global examples and have a debate in the society so that a law can be framed in this regard. But the union government, when this matter was being heard in the Supreme Court, it was not willing to take up that responsibility. In some ways, the union government defended marital rape by stating that if marital rape is criminalized, then it could undermine the institution of marriage and it could erode our societal values. Of course, the union government also has a fair point. To be fair to the central government, if marital rape were to be criminalized, there would be cases which are frivolous. There would be cases which are filed with a malified intention. False cases might come up against husbands where few women might try to misuse the law, just like dowry laws and other laws have been misused. Even provisions related to rape have been misused. Such cases might come up, but that cannot be a ground to legitimize marital rape and not to treat that as a criminal offense. Because if you don't recognize marital rape as a criminal offense, it violates the principle of consent, which is absolutely essential in any relationship, especially when there is a sexual relationship. Whether the couple are married or not doesn't matter, it's immaterial. Consent has to be pivotal. Even above the institution of marriage should come the principle of consent, which the legal system right now doesn't recognize. The government of India stated that if we declare marital rape as a criminal offense, then tomorrow false cases will come up and this will undermine the institution of marriage. It will undermine our societal values itself. But it's not a very strong argument of the center. It almost appears as if the center is defending the traditional orthodox values of the society and in a way legitimizing marital rape to continue. Now, if you look at data as well, women are at the receiving end of abusive married relationships. Studies based on National Family Health Survey data has shown that nearly 32% of married women in the country in the age group of 18 to 49 have experienced some sort of sexual, physical or emotional abuse and violence within marriage. Now, this is quite alarming. Very few of them seek out help and they reach out to the system to get justice. But majority of the women remain silent, suffer silently, as there are no legal options and the society looks down upon such women who might even bring out such cases into the open. This is extremely unfortunate in a constitutional democracy like India, because if you look at the global approach, many countries, they have a different approach on this issue. In fact, in many countries, marital rape is a punishable offense, a criminal offense. In several states in the United States of America, in Australia, New Zealand, in Canada and across Europe, even in Soviet Union, erstwhile Soviet Union and Russia, and also in our neighboring countries like Bhutan, marital rape is a criminal punishable offense. Even in United Kingdom, from where we inherited Section 375 of Indian Penal Code, in the UK as well, until 1990s, marital rape was not a punishable offense. But UK moved away from this after a horrific case that came up in 1991, following which the exception has been removed, which means marital rape is now a punishable criminal offense in the UK as well. So around the world, we have many examples where progressive countries have done away with such orthodox thinking and they have provided for criminal punishment with regard to marital rape. So in this regard, India stands out as the odd one out. So there is a strong demand from the civil society, from women activists, to consider this issue, to have more debates in the society, in the parliament especially, and eventually to bring out a law. This requires judicial activism as well to an extent. But more importantly, it requires legislative deliberation, legislative intervention, and the government needs to take the lead. So that is the need of the hour. Given the high number of marital rapes that are reported in the country and absolutely no action is taken against the accused, it is of utmost urgency for such deliberation and intervention to be carried out as far as marital rapes are concerned. So based on this, let's see a practice question. What kind of question can be asked? The ambiguous legal terrain surrounding sexual violence in marriage needs immediate legislative deliberation and intervention. Elucidate. So you can start out your answer by talking about the legal landscape in India concerning marital rape and sexual violence in marriage. Maybe you can talk about Section 375 of IPC, the exception that has been provided where only if the wife is under 15 years, only then it's treated as a criminal offense. You can even mention the independent thought case of 2017, through which Supreme Court raised the age limit to 18 years. So only if the wife is a minor, marital rape is seen as a criminal offense. There you need to mention that this has been done largely to protect minors, to implement the provisions of Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. But adults, right, adult married women have no legal recourse for marital rape. So you need to clearly illustrate in the introduction that this violates the principle of consent. Then you can bring the counter argument as well as to what the government has said, that criminalizing marital rape could violate our societal norms. It could undermine the institution of marriage because of fake cases which might come up. But that cannot be a ground to allow married women in our country to suffer from such cases of sexual and physical abuse within the institution of marriage. In the name of protecting the sanctity of the institution of marriage and our societal values, you can't allow women to go through such horrific trauma. There you can draw a parallel and comparison with global models. Give examples of how other countries have criminalized marital rape. They have created systems to try and tackle fake cases and frivolous complaints while providing legal justice for the victims of marital rape. So this has to be the stand that you need to take. But you need to point out that the ball lies in the court of the government and the parliament. The government has to take the lead and the parliament has to initiate the deliberation, bring the society, civil society and activists together, have a detailed discussion on these issues and come out with a law. There has to be a legal intervention so that we can get rid of the colonial hangover as well and make sure our laws are more progressive, which can protect women as well. So let me know what you think on this sensitive issue. Should marital rape be criminalized or not? Let me know in the comments. Now let's look at another interesting article on the same page that focuses on the growing close relations between Bangladesh and Pakistan. In the last few months, there has been a thaw in the relations between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Because previously, Bangladesh and Pakistan had a very fractured relationship, especially when Sheikh Hasina and her party Awami League was in power. Bangladesh had a lot of issues with regard to Pakistan and they were never the closest of friends. Also, given that Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League government was pro-India and very close to the government in India and protecting India's interests, naturally Bangladesh and Pakistan relations were never cordial or very good in the last few decades. But now that Sheikh Hasina has been toppled, Awami League has been removed from power, we are seeing a thaw in the relationship, and in the last few months, we have seen some big improvements taking place in the Pakistan-Bangladesh relationship. So we need to evaluate, examine how does this affect India? What could be the implications for Indian interests? Will Bangladesh move towards Pakistan? Will it become anti-India again? How can India manage this relationship? That is what we need to learn. It's a very interesting discussion. So let's take a look at this topic. First, let's see what developments have happened in the last 6 months with regard to Pakistan-Bangladesh relationship. See, from the moment Sheikh Hasina was removed in August 2024, following the popular uprising led by students and the political opponents of Sheikh Hasina, Sheikh Hasina's regime was toppled. Sheikh Hasina fled the country, took refuge in India, and her Awami League government was toppled. And now there is an interim government in place. This interim government is headed by Muhammad Yunus, and the Bangladeshi military has been backing this interim regime. So following the political turmoil that happened in Bangladesh, the Muhammad Yunus-led interim government has been reaching out to Pakistan, and in the last few months, some big developments have taken place. For example, senior military leaders from Pakistan were invited to Bangladesh to meet with the Bangladeshi military leadership at a very sensitive location, that is Rangpur, which is very close to the strategic Siliguri corridor of India. The Siliguri corridor in West Bengal, which is sandwiched between Nepal and Bangladesh, it's considered as the chicken's neck of India, the most vulnerable point of India, a strategic choke point, as it's a very narrow strip of land that connects northeast India with the rest of the country. India has a lot of strategic vulnerability at Siliguri corridor. Very close to Siliguri, at Rangpur, Bangladeshi military leadership hosted the Pakistani military leadership and engaged in military talks. And not only that, Bangladesh has been considering procuring weapons from Pakistan. They are considering closer security and intelligence relations to build cooperation between their armed forces, security forces and intelligence agencies. And in fact, Bangladeshi Navy was invited to take part in a naval exercise organized by Pakistan known as Aman, which is held in the Arabian Sea. Just a few days ago, Pakistan hosted the Aman naval exercise in the Arabian Sea, just off the coast of India, and Bangladeshi Navy participated. So this clearly symbolizes the growing strategic military relations between the new administration in Bangladesh and Pakistan. Now this is indeed a very big development because historically Bangladesh has a lot of issues and grievances against Pakistan. This goes all the way back to 1971 and the horrors and atrocities that West Pakistan committed against East Pakistan. It's rooted in the liberation of Bangladesh war. See, Bengali nationalists who led the liberation war under the leadership of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the Awami League, they essentially fought against the oppression and discrimination and the targeted violence that West Pakistan unleashed against East Pakistan and the Bengalis. India played a direct role in enabling the liberation efforts, not only to protect the Bengalis, but also to utilize the strategic opportunity to break Pakistan into two parts. We directly backed Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the Bengali nationalists and even gave covert support to Mukti Bahini rebels who could fight back against the atrocities that Pakistan committed in East Pakistan in 1970-71. The Pakistani army committed a genocide against the Bengalis, slaughtering millions of innocent Bengalis. And it was India which stood up for the Bengalis and supported their liberation movement. Eventually, we went to war that led to the India-Pakistan War of 1971, through which India delivered a crushing defeat to Pakistan and played a direct role in liberation of Bangladesh. So since then, the nationalist section of Bangladesh, who stand with Awami League and the founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, they have always demanded an apology from Pakistan. Pakistan, by the way, has never apologized for these horrors it committed. It has never acknowledged the genocide. It continues to spread propaganda that 1971 war was an Indian conspiracy. It doesn't acknowledge or recognize the genocide that the Pakistani army carried out against the Bengalis. In fact, when Sheikh Hasina started the prosecution of war criminals after she came back to power in 2009, Sheikh Hasina, the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, would set up these tribunals to try these war criminals of the erstwhile Pakistani state that existed in East Pakistan. Those war criminals who had abetted these acts of genocide, they were tried and punished. At that point, Pakistan had criticized Sheikh Hasina and even put pressure on Bangladesh to not prosecute these war criminals. It had condemned these trials, and it even supported some of the radical factions in Bangladesh who supported these war criminals when the trials were carried out few years ago. So this has been a fundamental divide between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Obviously, Sheikh Hasina, the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, after coming back to power in 2009, would pursue such prosecution of these cases involving war criminals. And Sheikh Hasina's government would demand an apology from Pakistan, which was never forthcoming from the Pakistani establishment. So this has been a major divide which has never been addressed. Till date, it has never been addressed. So as long as Sheikh Hasina was in power and Awami League was in power, there was no way that Bangladesh would have close ties with Pakistan. And Pakistan would continue to look at Bangladesh as a pro-India country. Because of Sheikh Hasina's pro-India approach, Pakistan kept its distance, and it would even create trouble between India and Bangladesh. It would even try to back radical factions in Bangladesh. Because in Bangladeshi society, there is a fundamental split again. There are nationalists on one side who stand with a Bengali identity, who support the ideals of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the Awami League. And there are others who are still inclined towards pro-Pakistan, the radical factions, the more fundamentalist factions. So India has been dealing with this divide from a very long time. And thanks to Sheikh Hasina's government, our interests were protected, and Bangladesh had been pro-India for the last 15 years. Now, without Pakistan apologizing and acknowledging the genocide that it carried out, and without atoning for the war crimes that it had committed, Bangladesh would have never gotten closer to Pakistan as long as Sheikh Hasina remained in power. But now things have started to change. Now that Sheikh Hasina is no longer in power, and we have seen the rise of radical fundamentalist forces who have even targeted Bengali nationalists, Awami League leaders, and they've even started targeting religious minorities, including Bengali Hindus, Christians, and as well as Ahmadiyas and other sects of Muslims have been targeted by the radical majoritarian violence that has broken out in the country. Now the condition is ideal for Pakistan to get closer to Bangladesh, and Muhammad Yunus, the interim leader, has shown that willingness to build that proximity. Now this is definitely concerning for India. But the question is, how far will Bangladesh go? Will Bangladesh become anti-India? Because we had seen this in the past. From 1960s to early 2000, for almost 40 to 50 years, we had seen that in Bangladesh and previously in East Pakistan, Pakistan used this territory to instigate violence in northeast India. For example, when Mizo insurgency broke out in 1960s, when Naga insurgency was raging from 1950s itself, Pakistan used East Pakistani territory to support and back the Mizo and Naga insurgents, waging a covert war against India to destabilize the northeast region. Pakistan would scale up this covert war post 1970s and 80s by backing several northeast insurgent groups, including Ulfa, the Bodo insurgents, and other insurgent groups that took shape in 70s and 80s. They were sheltered in Bangladesh, given support because Bangladesh had fallen under an anti-India government. After Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated in 1974-75 and his government was toppled, the Bangladeshi military took control, which was pro-Pakistan, and we saw the emergence of a pro-Pakistani leadership that would support anti-India activities. Bangladesh became a safe haven for terror activities against India, where multiple northeast insurgent groups were sheltered along with jihadist outfits such as the Huji, Lashkar-e-Toiba and the others. No wonder today Bangladesh remains a strong base for global terror groups such as Al-Qaeda, Islamic State and the others. And this remains a matter of concern for India. Definitely the security concern is present. Also the possible nexus between the militaries of Bangladesh and Pakistan could be even more serious for India. But at the same time, it's important to take a reality check. Can Bangladesh really get closer to Pakistan? The answer is not so easy. Even though there might be a pro-Pakistan regime and a pro-Pakistan leadership, let's say elections are held and let's say a party like BNP comes to power, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which has been known for its pro-Pakistan inclinations. Even then, it may not be easy for Bangladesh to completely align with Pakistan. Why? Because in Bangladesh, there is still a very large section of people who don't like Pakistan, who want an apology from Pakistan for 1971. Not just the Bengali nationalists, those who had suffered because of the atrocities of the Pakistani army, right? They still remember the bloodshed that Pakistan had caused. They hold Pakistan responsible. They want Pakistan to be held accountable for those crimes. So there is a large section in Bangladesh which expects Pakistan to apologize, which sees Pakistan as the root cause of the problems that happened in 60s and 70s. So no Bangladeshi government can just ignore that and go ahead and set up close ties with Pakistan. So even if Mohammad Yunus or the next government which might come in, if elections are held, they can't just align with Pakistan without addressing this historical grievance which is present, because there is a large section of Bangladeshi population which doesn't expect close ties with Pakistan. They expect an apology from Pakistan. They expect an acknowledgement from Pakistan for the genocide it carried out. So this could be a bulwark for India. This could be like a buffer which could keep Bangladesh slightly away from Pakistan. And also don't forget, economic reality on the ground doesn't suggest any possible close ties between Pakistan and Bangladesh. They might build close political, military, security relations, but economically this relationship will not be sustainable because both economies are going through a massive crisis. Bangladesh can't expect any economic support and assistance from Pakistan. Pakistan itself is on the brink of collapse. Its economy has just been sustained with some foreign support coming from China, Saudi Arabia and UAE and from IMF. Pakistan is dealing with a massive economic crisis and Bangladesh also is dealing with a huge economic challenge. So from an economic perspective, close ties between the two doesn't make sense. In fact, Bangladesh knows that. Bangladesh knows it can't rely on Pakistan for economic support and assistance. For that, it would need India. This is where you should understand the dependency Bangladesh has on India. That is the leverage India will have. We need not panic just because there is a thaw in Pakistan-Bangladesh relations. The reality check shows that there is still a large section of Bangladeshi population who don't like Pakistan altogether. They expect Pakistan to apologize for 1971. So that is the section India can appeal to. That is the section India can work with. And India also knows that Bangladesh can't depend on Pakistan for economic support and assistance. Instead, it has to depend on India. If you look at our trade relationship, this is the largest bilateral trade relationship in South Asia. India exports almost $11 billion worth of goods to Bangladesh. Bangladesh imports a lot of raw materials from India, lot of components and essential items from India. So in many ways, Bangladeshi economy is dependent on supplies from India, and that is a tremendous leverage that we have. Bangladeshi exports to India is hardly around $2 billion. So clearly, there is a huge trade deficit that goes against Bangladesh. So Bangladesh has a dependency on India. It needs essential supplies and materials and components from India, and it knows that India is the one which can provide assistance as well in the form of investments, loans, grants, etc. In the last few years, India has provided close to $7 billion in development assistance to Bangladesh. Pakistan cannot even dream of bringing such kind of funds into Bangladesh. Pakistan is not able to mobilize funds for itself. Where is the question of Pakistan bringing assistance for Bangladesh? It's almost impossible, out of the question. This is where India has an advantage. We have an established track record of investing in the country, taking up key infrastructure and development projects. For example, look at the friendship pipeline that was recently set up between India and Bangladesh. The connectivity projects interlinking our roads and railway lines and waterways. The port development projects where India has invested at the Chittagong and Mongla ports. Such investments can never be brought in from Pakistan. That is where India has a leverage, and Bangladesh realizes that it has a dependency on India. So this is where India has to play it very carefully, because we can't ignore the possibility of a much larger nexus taking shape, a China, Pakistan, Bangladesh nexus. A Bangladesh which might possibly be hostile to India, aligning with India's hostile neighbors, Pakistan and China. Now that could be a deadly combination. See, China, Bangladesh already have a close relationship. Bangladesh is part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. China has made massive investments in Bangladesh. China can bring in the economic support needed for Bangladesh, which Pakistan cannot bring in. And Pakistan can play spoil sport with India's interests by working with Bangladesh to create security threats and challenges for India. So definitely Pakistan would look to use Bangladesh to create fresh trouble in the northeast, or it would look to encircle India along the Indian Ocean from Arabian Sea to Bay of Bengal by building a maritime security alliance with Bangladesh. Now that is what India needs to watch out for. But again, a reality check shows that the lack of direct connectivity between Pakistan and Bangladesh works to the advantage of India. Since Bangladesh and Pakistan are separated from India, essentially India divides them, this lack of direct connectivity can be a hindrance for their close economic and security relations. In fact, this is what hindered the collaboration and connectivity between West and East Pakistan as well, right? So this is something India understands very well, but we need to watch out for a possible Chinese involvement, a China, Pakistan, Bangladesh that can develop. Now, what can India do? See, we already have a highly problematic neighborhood. In fact, the Modi government has been facing a lot of criticism for mishandling the South Asia neighborhood, because with almost every neighboring country, our ties have been very badly affected, and the situation in our neighboring countries has become very dangerous. Be it Myanmar, where there is a civil war going on, it appears as if the military junta is going to collapse, where armed groups, ethnic insurgent groups might take control. Nepal is going through continued political crisis with strong anti-India sentiments present. In Sri Lanka, Maldives, we are walking on very thin ice as very strong anti-India sentiments are present, and we have seen the rise of anti-India governments and anti-India leaders. And with regard to Pakistan, I don't think I even have to mention its anti-India approach. So Bangladesh was the lone bright spot for us, along with Bhutan in South Asia. Now Bangladesh also is turning the other way following the collapse of Sheikh Hasina's regime. We need to be mindful of this. It's critical for us to stabilize Bangladesh. We need to offer incentives to Bangladesh. We should attract Bangladesh using the leverage, the economic leverage. And we should tap those sections in Bangladesh which are still pro-India, the nationalist elements. Use them to counter the radicals. Pressurize the Bangladeshi government to protect the minorities. Offer economic incentives in return. Offer new projects, investments, maybe even military support if necessary. But ensure that minorities are protected and Indian security interests are protected. We should draw those red lines very clearly. India should make it clear that India will not tolerate any interference in the Northeast region or across the Indian Ocean region. Any kind of security threats, right? India should make this a red line that India will deal with it very seriously. And we should pressurize Bangladeshi government, if not in a negative manner, at least through positive reinforcement by working with the cultural ties and the people-to-people relations. We need to leverage the influence that we have to ensure that minorities are protected, irrespective of their religion. Then India should also be careful not to see this through the communal prism. While minorities are under threat, minority Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and even Muslims of different sects have been targeted. That is the reality. We should never see this through the communal prism. That would be a bigger mistake that India could make. Instead of just looking at this as a Hindu-Muslim issue, we should stand up for minority rights in general, irrespective of which religion they belong to. So that approach would help India. That would help India to project itself as a responsible power than as a big brother which is enforcing itself on a smaller country. So if India can play the cards right, then we still have an opportunity in Bangladesh. But there is an easy opportunity as well for Pakistan and China to change the course of events in South Asia and Indian Ocean, which could become quite dangerous and alarming for India. Given the hostile neighborhood that we are present in, the highly unstable neighborhood, it's very crucial for us to immediately work with Bangladesh and build up the relationship. Because in the last few months, India-Bangladesh relations have not really improved. In fact, it has taken a hit repeatedly. So it's high time for the government of India to take that effort, to put in that initial effort that is needed to woo Bangladesh on the Indian side. So please take up this practice question based on what we have discussed. Let's see how many of you can write an answer, and please post your answers in the comment section. Let's look at another interesting column on page number 8 that evaluates the Panchayati Raj system in India, the Panchayati Raj institutions. The writer, Subhajit Chattopadhyay, is a leading expert in decentralized governance in South Asia. He has a lot of experience in Africa as well, in working with decentralized organizations. So he's someone who understands the importance of local governance. So he applies his insights into India's Panchayati Raj system, and he is of the opinion that though our Panchayati Raj system has done phenomenally well, there are distressing factors. There are concerns which have come up because our Panchayati Raj system is getting eroded day by day. There are factors which are undermining decentralized governance in India. So let's understand this by diving a little deep into the topic. We'll go beyond the article, of course, and we'll look at this in complete detail because the topic is very important for polity and governance. Even for those with public administration as their optional, the topic can be very relevant. So let's limit our discussion to Panchayati Raj institutions. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992, along with the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. These constitutional changes that were done in 1992 were transformative. One of the biggest constitutional amendments that was ever done, as it provided constitutional status for decentralized governance in the country. It introduced the three-tiered local governance, starting from the district level with the establishment of your Zilla Panchayats, at the block level with the establishment of Taluk or Tehsil Panchayats, and finally at the village level with the establishment of the Gram Panchayats, with Gram Sabhas being designated as the nodal unit for local governance. This three-tiered local governance architecture has served India very well. Apart from having a strong center and a federal setup with states having their own jurisdiction, providing for local governance with constitutional status, with constitutional guarantees and protection was very crucial to provide for decentralized governance in the country, especially to address the problems at the grassroots, to look after welfare, to protect the rights of local communities, to get local communities involved in governance and in the decision-making process. Decentralized governance was very crucial to promote participative democracy. And that is what the 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act did in 1992. It not only set up the three-tiered local governance architecture, but it provided for state finance commissions to ensure the fiscal autonomy of these institutions, to ensure they have their own fiscal space without having to depend heavily on the center or the states. The Constitution mandates the State Finance Commission to provide an outlay for these local institutions. Regular periodic elections are provided with a constitutional guarantee that every 5 years periodic elections will take place, which has truly made participative democracy and the celebration of electoral democracy a reality at the grassroots. It has allowed lakhs of contestants at the local level to contest, to seek representation for themselves, for their community, for their region, to bring up their issues and look after their own governance through the delegation and devolution of subjects and powers and authority. So truly, this particular amendment was transformative as it rolled out participative democracy in the country. It also introduced more inclusive representation with the introduction of reservation, almost 50% reservation for women in most of the states, including reservation for SCs and STs. It has truly provided for inclusive participative democracy at the grassroots. This is a true celebration of participative democracy. Of course, there are many bright spots that we need to acknowledge and appreciate. The Panchayati Raj system has done phenomenally well for India. Periodic elections take place at the Panchayat level. In fact, the candidates contest these elections very seriously. Today, political parties are also keenly interested in local elections, be it the Panchayat elections or the municipal body elections. You see political parties at the state and national level playing a very interested role, with candidates taking the elections very seriously. And this provides for better participation at the grassroots, better accountability at the grassroots. The local communities feel empowered when they have the right to elect and throw out the elected representatives at the local level. So this has increased participation of women as well, participation of the vulnerable sections. For example, data shows that close to 1.4 million women representatives are serving at the local level at Panchayati Raj institutions. The Finance Commission, as per the overall plan drawn out by the Central Finance Commission, the State Finance Commissions have provided for fiscal space and fiscal autonomy to these institutions, and it has allowed the local governments to deliver welfare and social security at the grassroots level. So despite all these achievements of the Panchayati Raj system, there are many concerns which have come up in the last few years. The writer is pointing out there are many factors which are a cause for concern. For example, there is a marked decline in public participation. At the grassroots level, contesting in local elections has become limited to certain powerful entities. Those who come from powerful communities and castes and families, those who already have political influence with established parties, only they have cemented power. And in fact, if you look at the seats reserved for women, in a number of cases, the husbands would be just fielding their wives as just a proxy candidate, just to fulfill the reservation quota. But in reality, the husband would be taking the decisions in the name of his wife. So such proxy representation and the politicization of the participation in elections at the grassroots level is something that is a big threat to the very functioning and efficiency of local governments. Then, because of the nature of the welfare schemes which are being implemented, the centrally sponsored schemes, especially in the last 15-20 years, most of the socio-economic welfare schemes run by the center, right, they have become heavily driven by the central government, and the center has gained more control and influence over local governments, even by bypassing the state governments. So this has undermined the autonomy and the overall flexibility available for the local governments. The engagement of political parties, the mainstream national, regional parties which have entered local politics, they have corrupted the local governments and the elections that are held. And today, local elections are no different from your assembly or parliament elections. So this indeed has a long-term effect. The writer sees that there is a paradigm shift which is happening with regard to our panchayati systems, and you see that panchayats are being undermined day by day by the central government, the state governments. Their fiscal space is being taken away. They are being heavily politicized, and their overall spirit, the very spirit through which it was set up, the very purpose it was supposed to serve, is being undermined. Now, the writer says there are a few fundamental issues which are seen at the grassroots level. One is the administrative problem. State governments especially are very hesitant to devolve authority and power and manpower and resources. For local governments to function appropriately, if they have to be effective in local governance, they need manpower, they need resources. But state governments are unwilling to devolve and delegate. In most cases, state governments try to retain the resources with them. If you look at the grants that flow from the state to the local governments, ideally there should be more untied grants without conditions, without any criterias. But if states start placing more criterias and conditions, it allows the states to meddle with the fiscal autonomy of the local governments, and we have seen that happening. This has affected the autonomy of the local governments as they become dependent on state governments. The ruling party at the state level interferes with local elections, and by controlling the financial purse, by controlling the financial outflows to the local governments, states are essentially controlling the local governments. According to a study from the Ministry of Panchayati Raj that was published in 2022, less than 20% of the states in India have devolved all the 29 subjects that are listed under the 11th schedule of the Constitution. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act introduced the 11th schedule with 29 subjects to be devolved to the local Panchayati Raj institutions. Only 20% of the states have done that, which shows that states are retaining some of these subjects. They are unwilling to let go of the authority. They are compromising the autonomy and the independence of the local bodies. So this is a deep concern. Next, the fiscal autonomy and fiscal space of panchayats is being further curbed by the center. If you look at the financial outflow from central government to local panchayats, it has increased substantially. You might say this is good. If center is giving more funds, isn't this good? Yes, it's good for welfare, but let's see how it affects panchayats and their autonomy. From 13th to 15th Finance Commission, if you look at the financial outflow, there has been a significant jump. Under the 13th Finance Commission, Centre was providing around 1.45 lakh crore rupees to the local bodies. Now this has jumped to 2.36 lakh crores. The untied funds which were being granted without conditions from Centre to local governments, which was at 85%, has now reduced to 60%, which means most of the funds coming from the Centre today are conditional. The centrally sponsored schemes, which includes Manrega and various other welfare programs and schemes, though they have a good intention, Centre through its funds is controlling the local governments and bypassing the state governments. If local bodies have to avail these central funds, they have to meet certain criteria. This allows the central government to exercise its own influence and meddle with the functioning of the local governments, and this compromises the decision-making ability of the local governments. The very spirit of Panchayati Raj institution is to enable decentralized decision-making. If Centre is interfering and centralizing decision-making and policy implementation, that undermines the very objective of establishing Panchayati Raj institutions. So that is a very key point being raised by the writer. So the reimagination of the welfare model, the populist schemes which have come out, the Revdi culture which parties have promoted at the state and national level, where they are announcing freebies after freebies just to win elections, just to please the electorate, this has compromised the ability of the Panchayati Raj institutions to deliver welfare. Now, if you look at schemes like, let's say, PM Kisan or other cash transfer schemes, for example, in healthcare, in livelihood schemes, there are many cash transfer schemes. What the Centre has done to bring efficiency, to tackle corruption and to target the beneficiaries, it has rolled out the JAM Trinity and introduced direct benefit transfer by linking Aadhaar numbers with the Jan Dhan bank accounts and the mobile numbers. Beneficiaries are being specifically targeted and direct cash transfers are being done to the bank accounts. Now this is good for efficiency, to tackle corruption, to reduce leakage, to ensure that the right beneficiaries get the benefit of these schemes. But however, this now eliminates the role of the local governments. Previously, local governments were playing a role in selecting the beneficiary. This was bringing some amount of local accountability. But this has been completely done away with the reimagined welfare schemes and the direct benefit transfer model which has been implemented by the Centre. Then also the rapid urbanization that we are seeing in our country. This is also responsible for the neglect of Panchayati Raj institutions. In 1990s, close to 75% of our population was in rural areas. But as India's economy exploded after LPG reforms, we mainly saw urban-centric growth, which led to large migration, mass migration from rural to urban areas. Today, the population percentage in rural areas has fallen to 60%. Around 94 crore people are in rural areas, which is a significant fall compared to the percentage that was there in 1990s, where almost 3/4, almost 75% of our population was in the rural belt. So with rapid urbanization, there is more focus on cities. There is more focus on municipal bodies. But this does not mean our municipal bodies are performing phenomenally well. They have their own problems. They are struggling on their own. But policy priority has become municipal bodies, and panchayati raj institutions are getting neglected as there is a population shift happening from rural to urban areas. This is where the writer points out. Because of urbanization, because of focus on welfare schemes and the dependency on technological delivery of welfare through direct benefit transfer, though they are necessary, it should not undermine rural local governance. Because even now, 60% of our population, majority of our population is in the rural belt, 94 crore people. 45% of India's working age population are agrarian population. They are dependent on agriculture. So these statistics are very important. So this clearly shows us that panchayati raj institutions have a big role to play. So state governments have to devolve and delegate more authority, more resources. Center has to loosen its control and provide untied funds instead of placing these conditions and criteria which eats away the autonomy of these bodies. It should empower the local bodies. The local bodies should play a role not just in implementing welfare schemes, but also in other aspects of policy making and governance. Maybe with regard to forest rights. Under Forest Rights Act, local communities through Gram Sabhas, which is a legal right given to the Gram Sabhas, let them decide how the local resources are distributed and utilized. Let them handle water resource management, disaster management at the local level, or even environment protection and managing man-animal conflict. Get the local communities more involved through panchayati institutions and allow the local bodies to be more autonomous, more independent, so they can take their own decisions with involvement of local community. This strengthening, grassroots strengthening is required to rebuild our panchayati raj system. Or else if we continue on this path where states and center, they're eating away the autonomy of the panchayati raj institutions, political parties are exploiting the opportunity that they have got with regard to local elections. If we continue on this path, we will see the death of the panchayati raj system itself. The system might survive, but the true spirit and objective with which it was set up may not exist. So that is what we take away from this article. Next, on page 9, we have an article related to rat hole mining. It's a small article. Let's have a quick discussion, because recently there has been an unspeakable tragedy in Assam. In Assam, several workers lost their lives who were employed at an illegal rat hole mine following the collapse of a tunnel. We have seen such incidents occurring repeatedly in the neighboring state of Meghalaya as well. In fact, Meghalaya is the hub of this illegal practice known as rat hole mining. Now, what exactly is rat hole mining? Why is it prevalent in Assam and Meghalaya and in some parts of India? See, in 1980s, there was a rapid rising demand for coal, especially in states like West Bengal and also in other industrialized states, from Maharashtra to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and even some neighboring countries like Bangladesh. There was a rising demand for coal. So as a result, since large companies like Coal India Limited could not meet the local demands and the requirements, a huge illegal mafia took root in some states, particularly in the northeast, in Assam and Meghalaya, also in some parts of central India, where these illegal coal mines came up. Now, if you look at the geography, the terrain, resource distribution of Assam, Meghalaya, though coal seams are present, it's not present in viable quantities. It's not viable for commercial large-scale exploitation. Large-scale mining is not viable also due to the difficult geography of the northeast. So, coal seams are present. It is readily accessible, but it's not commercially viable for large-scale exploitation. So, local mafias, with the involvement of corrupt officials and politicians, what they do, they violate the law and take up rat hole mining, which is an illegal form of mining which has been banned. It's been prohibited. In rat hole mining, there are two types, where manual labor is used to dig these small narrow tunnels. There is one method known as, specific method of rat hole mining known as box cutting. Box cutting is one specific method, and the other method, which is unique to Assam and Meghalaya, is the side cutting method. Using these two techniques, laborers are employed by these illegal mafias to dig these small narrow tunnels through which only one person can crawl through to extract the coal from the coal seams. Right below the surface, coal seams will be present, especially in the slopes of hills. All you have to do is dig through a little, create those small tunnels so that a person can crawl in and extract the coal from there. So this manual rudimentary practice of extracting coal is called rat hole mining. It's called rat hole mining because the tunnels that are dug, right, they're as small as a rat hole. Even a person won't be able to easily crawl through. It's very difficult for a well-built person to crawl through a rat hole. Now these rat holes which are dug, the tunnels essentially, they're very vulnerable. They can easily collapse because its structural integrity is not well reinforced. It's not well protected. It can easily collapse because of the vulnerabilities. Also, waters might flood during rainy season, leading to flooding of these tunnels, and the mine workers might get trapped. So in the side cutting method, these narrow tunnels are dug along the sides of the hill, along the exterior walls of the hill. These side cutting is carried out where narrow tunnels are dug along the sides of the hill to extract the coal seams. In box cutting, these deep pits are dug. Deep pits are dug into the ground, and the coal miners, essentially, they go in to extract the coal by hand through manual effort. So very limited machinery is used. Now these illegal mafias which are operating and controlling these activities, they are well connected with corrupt officials and politicians. In a way, they have some blessings to continue with this lucrative activity. Now, such rat hole mining is a huge safety hazard and an environmental hazard. Because as I said, these narrow tunnels are highly risky. They can easily collapse, trapping the mine workers, or flood waters might enter, trapping the mine workers, and many people lose their lives every year in Assam, Meghalaya, and in some other states of India. So there is a clear safety risk to the mine workers. And please understand, those who work in these illegal mines, they are being exploited. It's almost like bonded labor. Especially desperate migrant workers who are looking for jobs, they are exploited by these traffickers and mafias. They promise them a decent pay, they lure them with this opportunity, force them to work here, and essentially it becomes a type of exploitative bonded labor. There's a clear health risk to their lives as they get exposed to harmful hazardous substances. There's a clear occupational hazard associated with it. And reports also show that there is large-scale child labor which is employed. Children are forced, especially trafficked children, are forced into illegal rat hole mining. And this is another major concern. Plus, rat hole mining leaches a lot of hazardous substances, including heavy metals, into the soil and the water bodies, leading to environmental pollution and degradation. It increases deforestation as well. It's a threat to biodiversity as well. So there is a clear safety risk, an environmental risk. So in 2014, the National Green Tribunal, considering the risk associated with rat hole mining, placed a ban on all types of rat hole mining in the country. The National Green Tribunal placed a countrywide ban in 2014. This ban has been upheld by the Supreme Court in 2017. Supreme Court also has upheld the ban, the prohibition on rat hole mining, but still the illegal practice continues. So what does this tell you? It clearly tells you that enforcement is weak. The government is failing to enforce. It also shows you that there is a collusion, a corrupt nexus that is flourishing between these illegal mafias which are profiting from it and the politicians and officials who are benefiting from it. So don't we have laws and regulations in this regard? We do. Look at the MMRDA, the MMRD Act of 1957, Mines and Minerals Regulation and Development Act of 1957. It prohibits such illegal mining. It gives powers to the center to act against it. But states have a primary responsibility. States have to come out with regulations to prohibit such illegal mining. But states have largely failed. They've even tried to bypass these regulations in a way to enable rat hole mining. Now the center has to act. If states are not acting, center has to invoke its powers from MMRDA Act and ensure that such practices are prohibited. For example, in Karnataka, in the Bellary region, when notorious illegal mining was being carried out by powerful politicians linked with certain parties, it was eventually the central government which stepped in through the extraordinary power of MMRDA Act and put a complete ban on mining and illegal mining in the Bellary region of Karnataka. Such action is needed from the center to ban illegal mining, enforce the ban on the ground. This is very, very essential. Local communities have to be empowered through Forest Rights Act so that local communities will never allow such illegal practices to continue. So it's very important to implement this because the continuation of rat hole mining is a violation of Article 21. It's a threat to right to life. It's been banned by the NGT and the Supreme Court, and yet the practice continues. So the blame lies with the state governments and the central government. So it's very, very essential to act upon this immediately so that we prevent further tragedies. Now, coming to the last few articles in today's newspaper, the smaller articles. On the front page itself, we have a situation being reported from Manipur. According to the article, security forces have arrested the militants belonging to a militant organization known as the Kuki National Army. Now, from internal security point of view, you should know what is the Kuki National Army. The Kuki National Army is the armed wing of the Kuki National Organization, which is a collective separatist group comprising of nearly 24 Kuki groups from India and Myanmar. The Kuki National Organization is leading a separatist war, not just against India but against Myanmar as well, to form an independent state known as Kuki land for the Kuki Zo community. So, the insurgent group, the armed wing of the Kuki National Organization, is the Kuki National Army, which has resorted to large-scale violence in the past. It was formed in 1980s. It has carried out many attacks throughout 1990s, early 2000, and even recently during the ethnic clashes in Manipur. Now, in 2008, a suspension of operations agreement had been signed with this organization. The government of India and the government of Manipur, with the United People's Front from Manipur, a civil society grouping representing the communities of Manipur, along with the Kuki National Organization and the Kuki National Army, they had entered into a suspension of operations agreement, basically a ceasefire agreement. This ended the attacks of Kuki National Army, and in return, Indian security forces also stopped their operations against the Kuki armed groups. We were trying to work out a possible peace agreement. But following the recent tensions, in fact in 2023, the Manipur state government under then Chief Minister Biren Singh withdrew from this ceasefire agreement, which was initially the trigger for the Kukis to feel insecure. Before the reservation issue for Metis came up, much before that, the Biren Singh government had been accusing the Kukizo community of infiltrating into India from Myanmar. They were being branded as illegal migrants, and Biren Singh government had alleged that these Kuki communities were largely cultivating drugs in the hill areas of Churchandpur and in other hill regions of Manipur. So following this, Manipur police unleashed a drive against such illegal encroachment, and during this tension that existed between Manipur government and the Kuki groups, the ceasefire agreement of 2008 was suspended by the Manipur state government, which basically allowed Manipur police to target the Kuki groups, including the Kuki National Army. So this made the Kukis feel insecure. So later, when the High Court order came that Metis should be considered for giving reservation, right, that incited the passions which led to the large-scale violence between the Metis and the Kukis. So that's why Kuki National Army, Kuki National Organization is important, relevant. You should know what is this organization, what is its brief history. Then, security forces have arrested militants of another group, a Metis-based communist militant organization known as the Kanglepak Communist Party, the PWG group. Kanglepak is a reference to the historical name of the princely state of Manipur, the Manipur kingdom. So some of the communist Metis, the left-wing extremist Metis, have a separate insurgent group. See, Metis have multiple insurgent organizations as well. The UNLF, which we studied recently, I think yesterday, right? Apart from that, the Kanglepak Communist Party, again largely a Meitei insurgent group led by the communists believing in left-wing extremist Maoism and extreme Marxism. So this insurgent group also has been a threat in Manipur. So these groups have become active again in the last 1.5 years following the ethnic clashes between Meiteis and Kukis. These armed militant groups have become active again on both the sides, and security forces have been dealing with the threat. Now coming to the prelim section, let's go through this quickly. We have very small articles. On page number 4, we have an article referring to a protest in Pune. A river redevelopment project has been proposed in Pune, in the city of Pune along the Musi river. A riverfront development project has been proposed, and this might lead to cutting down of certain trees and some forest areas as well, which can lead to deforestation. So environmental activists, local civil society groups, they are opposing this riverfront development project at the cost of the environment. So to prevent the cutting down of these trees and the small forest areas, they have led this popular movement, a movement which is very popular in India against deforestation, the Chipko movement. You can see environmental activists, students and volunteers hugging the trees as a symbolic protest, also to physically prevent the cutting down of these trees, which are crucial for the local ecosystem. Now this reminds us of the Chipko Chaluvali, or the Chipko movement of the 1970s, which gained traction momentum in Uttarakhand, in the Garhwal region of Himalayas, led by Sundarlal Bahuguna, when large-scale development projects were proposed in the foothills of Himalayas and in the Garhwal region of Uttarakhand. The local communities, they were inspired with the Gandhian ideal of non-violent satyagraha, and they resorted to the practice of hugging the tree, Chipko, essentially hugging the tree itself, not just as a symbolic protest but also as a physical disruption to prevent the cutting down of trees. So similar movements have broken out across the country. In Karnataka, in Maharashtra, we have seen such activist movements focused on protection of trees. So that is something you should take note of. Next, Shashi Tharoor has faced criticism from his own party, because Shashi Tharoor has praised the Kerala government. Recently, he praised Prime Minister Modi as well. So because of this, the Congress leader has been criticized by his own party. But however, Shashi Tharoor has defended himself. See, Shashi Tharoor, on one hand, praised Prime Minister Modi for handling the relations with US and Donald Trump. Then on the other hand, he has praised the Kerala government for championing growth and for promoting startups in Kerala. Kerala has done quite well with regard to creating a right ecosystem for startups. So this could be a political issue, but what matters for us is that Shashi Tharoor has defended himself, stating that he praised Kerala government for creating an ideal environment for startups by looking at data from a report, a very important report, the Global Startup Ecosystem Report. The Global Startup Ecosystem Report studies the startup hubs around the world and rates them according to ease of doing business. It identifies the cities around the world like Tel Aviv, which is a global startup hub, to Los Angeles, the Bay Area in San Francisco, and all other major cities from Tokyo to Seoul to other important cities. India also is considered as a startup hub, right? So this report, published by an organization known as Startup Genome. Startup Genome is an organization focused on identifying the conducive environment for startups around the world. It has been coming out with this report for 12 years now. The Global Startup Ecosystem Report that rates and ranks different cities as per the startup ecosystem which has been created. It looks at the infrastructure, the human resource, the talent pool which is available, the policies and regulations which are present in that city. They are evaluated, and accordingly cities are ranked with regard to being startup hubs of the world. Right at the top, you have Silicon Valley, followed by New York, London, Tel Aviv, Los Angeles. What is shocking and concerning for us is that there is not a single Indian city in the top 20. You might think India is a startup hub. Bangalore, Hyderabad, Noida, Gurgaon, Pune, there might be startup hubs, but they don't rank in the global list, not even in the top 20. Now, can you find out the ranking of Indian cities on this report? Please mention that in the comments. What's the rank of Bangalore, the leading startup hub of India? What about Hyderabad, Pune and others? Please look at this, take this as a homework, as an exercise, and let me know the ranking of Indian cities on this report. Not a single Indian city is present in the top 20. So on the basis of this report, which points out the positive changes that has happened in Kerala for the startup ecosystem, based on that, Shashi Tharoor praised the Kerala government. That is where the controversy broke out. Next, on page 11, we have an article that refers to International Committee of the Red Cross. It's a news because today, 17th February, marks the anniversary of the establishment of this humanitarian organization. It's one of the world's largest and most important humanitarian organization. It was set up on 17th February in 1863. So let's understand what is the Red Cross, the International Committee of the Red Cross. It was established in 1873, functions out of Geneva. Sorry, make a correction. It was established in 1863. 1863 on the 17th of Feb, and it is based out of Geneva. It essentially provides for aid and assistance to those who are suffering in war zones and conflict zones. On humanitarian grounds, this organization delivers medical assistance and humanitarian aid and assistance in war zones around the world. It does not differentiate between combatants and non-combatants. It could be terrorists or rebels. It doesn't distinguish between anyone on any grounds. It will treat and provide assistance to everyone. Anybody who's wounded, a prisoner or a civilian or a combatant or a non-combatant or even a terrorist. On humanitarian grounds, they receive basic aid and assistance, including medical support, and that is the pivotal role of this organization. This role of Red Cross is recognized by all the state parties to Geneva Convention and the additional protocols to it. The Geneva Convention deals with the rules of war. It deals with genocide and war crimes and prevention of crimes against humanity. So all the state parties have accepted the role of Red Cross as an international humanitarian organization that will work in conflict zones. It is still very important for our exams. Why? Because Red Cross is in the news in Gaza. Red Cross volunteers have been facing very serious risks and challenges, and still they are managing to deliver aid to Palestinians who are trapped in Gaza. And Israel has been accused of targeting Red Cross volunteers as well through disproportionate use of military force. So in that regard, Red Cross can come as a prelims question. Please note it has won 3 Nobel Peace Prizes for the incredible work that Red Cross volunteers have delivered in conflict zones. Next, on page 12, there is an article referring to the Indian Ocean Conference. The 8th Indian Ocean Conference is currently taking place in Muscat, the capital of Oman, where leaders, foreign ministers, officials from Indian Ocean countries are participating to deliberate upon the issues of the Indian Ocean region. It could be maritime security issues, economic issues, or the strategic challenges present in the Indian Ocean. All these issues are being debated and discussed by the rim countries, the littorals of Indian Ocean, at the Indian Ocean Conference. Now, please don't confuse this with IORA. IORA is a separate group altogether. Indian Ocean Rim Association is a separate grouping altogether, whereas Indian Ocean Conference is a recent initiative that was started in 2016 by India Foundation. A think tank known as India Foundation launched Indian Ocean Conference with the backing of Ministry of External Affairs, and since 2016 it's being held across Indian Ocean countries. It's like a symposium that brings Indian Ocean countries together to discuss about the key issues of the Indian Ocean, be it security issues, economic, trade, and any other aspect which is affecting the stability of the Indian Ocean. They are discussed. India is a lead country. It's not just pushed by the governments, even civil society think tanks and experts from outside the government participate. So this time, 8th Indian Ocean Conference is being hosted in Muscat in Oman, and India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar has addressed the gathering and highlighted some of the key issues of the Indian Ocean region. Coming to the last article, China has shocked the Western countries again by signing a key agreement with a very small island country in the South Pacific, the Cook Islands. China and Cook Islands have signed the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement, which enhances China's strategic ties with this small strategic island nation in the South Pacific and improves the security ties. Thus, it enhances China's security presence and influence in the South Pacific. See, Cook Islands was a former colony of New Zealand. Even today, New Zealand has very close ties with Cook Islands, a Western power, by the way. In fact, Cook Islands has a free association relationship with New Zealand. They have a almost open border system, visa-free entry, and New Zealand plays a big role in Cook Islands along with Australia. Traditionally, these Western aligned powers are influential in the South Pacific along with Japan and US. But of late, in the South Pacific, a new competition has broken out where China has been a major entrant. Traditionally, Australia and New Zealand have been the dominant powers in this region, where all these small island nations are present in the South Pacific. United States also has been very influential, not only because of its close ties with Australia and New Zealand, but also it has a big military presence across the South Pacific. Japan also has been very influential. But of late, China has been expanding its ties with the South Pacific countries under the Belt and Road Initiative. Recently, it signed a security agreement with the Solomon Islands, which has allowed PLA Navy to access Solomon Islands and build military infrastructure and bring its naval ships and submarines to the South Pacific. So China has been increasingly challenging the dominance of the US, Australia and New Zealand. China has been reaching out to every single country, from Palau to Papua New Guinea to Vanuatu, Tuvalu, Fiji, Tonga. Every country has been a focus for China. India also is a significant player because we have close ties with countries like Fiji, Papua New Guinea and the others, because we have a strong Indian community present here. So even as India competes with others for influence and for access to the precious resources of South Pacific, China is marching ahead, and now it has signed a security agreement and a comprehensive partnership agreement with Cook Islands, located over here near French Polynesia. This is where Cook Islands is located, a former colony of New Zealand. Traditionally, New Zealand has been very influential with Australia. Now China is expanding its influence, signing these deals and bringing these countries one by one under the fold and influence of China. So that is what you need to note with regard to this article, and with this I bring my discussion to an end. I hope the detailed analysis has been helpful. I hope you guys have understood all the key topics, and if you did like the session, do let me know in the comments. Do press the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.